welcome back to another episode of the Oner Podcast, the podcast where we break down and review films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next-door neighbor and lifelong best friend,
Kramer, England.
And we grew up watching WWF and
Yeah.
WCW SmackDown,
WCW SmackDown, like the
Nitro.
Thursday Night Nitro or whatever.
We grew up with Can You Smell
Yeah.
What the Rock is cooking?
Yeah.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stone Cold. Yeah.
Who was your favorite guy?
Goldberg.
Oh yeah, dude.
Because I think The Rock was WWF at the time.
Right.
And then but Goldberg was WCW.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the one that we would always watch was the WCW.
We liked WCW more.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
That had the Hulkster, that had Macho Man Randy Savage, that had Sting, that had, the NWO versus the WCW. I just felt like the WCW had more and had Goldberg.
Yeah.
And we did love Gold. It had Diamond Dallas Page.
Yeah, with Karl Malone.
Yeah, dude. DDP and the Mailman.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's crazy. Doing the DDP stunner or whatever it was.
Yeah, the diamond. What was it? It was the diamond.
He would do
the
this
diamond crusher, or
he'd like break it on your face, which is just like the worst move.
Diamond breaker. What? I don't even remember.
Let me smack you cutter. Like this.
Yeah.
It's like at least Goldberg. It's like the spear looked like that would hurt.
Yeah.
If you got or the power bomb. Like what was the Rock's move? Was it rock bottom? Was it rock?
Something like that? I don't know what his signature move was.
The people's elbow.
The people's elbow. That's right. Yeah,
the people's elbow.
Because Goldberg was the jackhammer.
Yeah.
And dude, we would talk oh man. Yeah, wrestling. He has made a career for himself.
I mean, of all the guys, because a lot of these guys did try to go and be in the movies. The Hulkster, when he was in his prime, made that movie like the nanny one where he was he was Hulk Hogan, but he was somebody's nanny. It's a genre of films. Vin Diesel did it with The Pacifier.
Yeah.
And there's, I'm surprised that Dwayne Johnson hasn't been somebody's nanny in a movie.
He was the Tooth Fairy.
But of all the, I guess John Cena and Dwayne Johnson are probably doing the best. You could throw Dave Bautista in there.
Bautista, yeah, I would say those three, and they all have some pretty good acting chops. I think John Cena is a little bit more likable than a good actor. I'm not saying he's not a good actor, but he's they've all done pretty well. And made it to the mainstream.
Who do you think's the best actor of those three guys? Bautista, Dwayne Johnson, and Cena.
You got to play them all in the right part, because there's a lot of movies where The Rock is just not very good.
Well, that's what we found out with The Smashing Machine, right? Is like there are some actors who are usually just not that great, but with the right role, all of a sudden you're like, okay.
I was amazed the entire time. I was like, this is a good role for him.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's dramatic roles where it's like an action or something, it just, I don't know. I just can't really buy it. Like all the Welcome, the Jumanji movies with him and Kevin Hart just have something, and it's really, really funny. And they have a chemistry that's really good. Yeah. And when he's in kind of the comedic roles, he does really, really well. And I just enjoy watching him in those. But then some of his serious ones, I just don't get it. But this one, I was like, wow, he actually did a very, very good job.
Yeah, we are talking about The Smashing Machine, Benny Safdie's new movie that is in theaters right now, starring Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt. Go out and see it if you haven't already. Spoiler-free thoughts here initially. As you can hear, all the buzz is Dwayne Johnson really that good in this movie? So that's what we're starting out talking about. I'm just going to ask you in the spoiler-free section, because this isn't a spoiler. Is Dwayne Johnson going to win an Oscar?
I don't know if he'll win. I think he should get nominated. I think he really put a lot into this role, and you see it. And I think he created a really, really interesting character. And he did. It's also just I think it's even more apparent because of how some of his roles haven't been as good. So it's like, wow, he's really kind of come out of his shell and he's really done it. So it makes it look really good.
Mm.
But I do think he should get nominated. I don't know if he's going to win though. But I don't know. What did you think?
I don't think he'll win, but I think a nomination is pretty much unavoidable.
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah,
there's any chance he's not nominated for both the Golden Globe and the Oscar. Maybe
yeah.
he wins like the SAG award or something,
Maybe. Yeah,
or like maybe he even wins the Golden Globe. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
But I I highly doubt Dwayne Johnson takes home best actor, but also like the Oscars these days seem to fold into their consideration
yeah,
uh movie stardom and career awards. But I think, in my opinion, like this is the first actually good performance I've ever seen from Dwayne Johnson.
yes,
In my mind, Dwayne Johnson is just like a bankable movie star,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
he has a kind of tone that he does reasonably well enough that it's not horrible to look at. But the
yeah.
real reason why you put him in your movies is because he's just a presence.
Oh yeah, yeah,
He's just a force.
yeah,
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day.
yeah.
When we were growing up, it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't thought of as a good actor. He
No.
was good enough that it didn't like ruin the movie to watch him, but mostly he was just a physical force. He was
Yes.
just on screen, he was just like, "Geez, look at that
Yeah.
guy."
He had charisma. He had the screen presence,
Mhm.
and The Rock has that screen presence for sure.
And what this role reminds me of for Dwayne Johnson is how, like, a better comp than Schwarzenegger is Stallone, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Stallone's another one of those guys who just he was competing with Schwarzenegger in the 80s and 90s over who was gonna be the top
Mhm.
action hero, the top movie star, and for the most part, Stallone and our whole everyone, like, these are two guys who, like, everyone loves to impersonate, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Oh
"You
yeah.
doing this thing?
Uh,
Are you doing
Adrian,
this thing? You're doing this, you're"
get
and
to the
it's
chopper.
yeah, and it's like these
Yeah, yeah,
two guys, these
yeah,
voices. But, like, Stallone's the one because I don't know that there is, like, uh I guess maybe, like, The Terminator and specifically T2. I would say
yeah, yeah,
maybe T2 is Arnold Schwarzenegger's best on-screen performance in
yeah.
anything because he's not
Yeah.
even really that great in Terminator if you actually go back and watch that movie. Like, he's not
No.
he's just sort of the physical force. But in the second one, there's actually, like,
Yeah.
something to the way that Cameron captures
Yeah.
his
He,
attempts at connecting with John Connor and
yeah.
that are really endearing. But, like, Stallone has an entire career that has this one character that every time he came back to it, everyone was like, "Yeah, you're kind of a good actor when you do that," and it's
Yeah.
Rocky.
Yeah.
It's just like
Exactly.
whenever
You're
he was Rocky Balboa, we'd be like, You're kinda good."
Yeah, you're blown away by his acting chops when he does that, and he has some other roles that are good. But yeah, it's weird every time. It's like, yeah, wow, you play that. How do you play that character so well?
Because you could even say Rambo, but it's like I think First Blood is a really solid performance from
Mhm.
Stallone, and then that series kind of gets off track really quickly. But if you go through the Rocky movies, his like arc that he takes that character on over
Yeah.
like a 40-year,
Mhm.
journey is, and like the movie he was nominated for was Creed, where he plays
Yes.
Adonis Creed's
Yeah.
trainer, and I remember watching him in that movie, going like, dude, this is this is your career best work, like,
Oh yeah.
hands
Yeah.
down. And he didn't win, but I think
No.
it's a very similar comp here to what Dwayne Johnson's doing, where it's kinda like,
Yeah.
"Okay, all
Yeah.
right."
Yeah. I think so. From what I understand, this is all rumor, so take this with a huge grain of salt. But from what I understand, I don't think Stallone in Hollywood is liked the most. Not that he is a horrible person, but I think some people don't. He rubs people the wrong way in some instances, right?
I'm sure he's got
So
an ego.
yes, and I think that worked against him because I heard someone's like, "I'm not going to give Stallone an Oscar,"
Yeah.
like that was kind of a thing. So that probably hurt him, unfortunately. With The Rock, the thing that he has going for him is that everybody seems to love him. He seems to have really good work ethic. I'm sure he has an ego, but he seems to get things done. He works hard. As far as I know, which is not very much, it seems like he's a well liked in the industry, right? So
And at least in the Fast series, I think people like him more
yeah.
than they like Vin Diesel.
Yeah, I think they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's got that going for him. The thing that he has against him is sometimes, I mean, this movie again has bombed. This movie is not. It opened at like 6 million or 5, 7, something like that. It's his lowest opening of all time, which is unfortunate. And sometimes that does go into it like, well, he did a great performance, but the movie nobody saw it. So, but I think honestly, I think he'll get nominated for sure, and we'll see.
Okay, so let's talk about still in general thoughts, still no spoilers. Everybody,
Yeah, yeah,
you're still safe. But let's talk about our general thoughts on the movie now. We've talked about his
yeah,
performance a little bit. I mean, one of the other storylines here is like, is Benny Safdie? Does he have the sauce without his brother, without Josh? They split up. Josh is. I mean, just for this year, it's not like they're
yeah,
like.
yeah,
I don't think there's any stories that there's like bad blood between
yeah,
the
yeah.
Safdie brothers.
Yeah,
Just Josh is making a movie called Marty Supreme that is coming
yeah,
out with Timothy Chalamet. I think
mhm,
next month,
yeah,
and Benny has the Smashing Machine, and they're both sports. I think
yeah.
biopics. I'm not sure if Marty Supreme is based on a real guy.
I think he is.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is.
So they're but they're just it's ping pong and UFC fighting, and MMA fighting. But I to me, this movie is there's a lot of people talking about how it doesn't have the same feel as like a Safdie brothers film. What we've come to expect from movies like Good Time and Uncut Gems, which are these sort of adrenaline rides. They're sort of these like pulse pounding the entire movie. You feel anxious the entire movie. The movie never lets you go. You're on the edge of your seat the
Right.
entire time. And and I personally I heard people say that before I went and saw it, so I wasn't expecting like a pulse pounding crazy adrenaline ride.
Right.
I personally I don't know how you felt, but I really liked how Benny Safdie's approach to this. I liked that it felt tonally different from
Yeah.
Uncut Gems and from Good Time, but it still had the same like style. It still had like I heard somebody say that this movie is much more jazzy than those movies, and
Mm.
I
Yeah, I can
really
see that.
like that description that this movie felt kind of smooth and jazzy. I
Yeah.
felt like Benny Safdie here felt really confident about what he was doing, and that's
Yeah.
that same way we were talking about PTA, how in the earlier films there's a much poppier, fast-paced editing style and shooting style, and then
Yeah.
in these later films like There Will Be Blood and The Master, everything sort of slows down and he takes his time with things and he doesn't feel like he needs to be as
Yeah.
uh in your face about the style. I felt that from Benny Safdie here, that it felt like he really trusted the script that he had and trusted his actors and just sort of let moments breathe in a
Yeah.
way. But maybe where that hurts the film, in my opinion, is that I can't see myself wanting to rush to go rewatch this movie right
Yeah.
away
Yeah.
because it does feel sometimes a little maybe meandering or
Yep.
aimless.
Yeah.
There's a structure that's definitely being built up to that we definitely feel in the third act of like
Yep.
this conflict between him and his friend that might happen,
Yeah.
and him struggling with his own personal demons. Mark Kerr, the character,
Mhm.
but in between, in the middle of that, but I this is a double edged sword for me because I kind of liked that Benny Safdie. And that I can't remember who wrote the script, but that
He did.
oh he did okay good that I liked that he didn't lean into genre tropes because this
Yeah.
is a genre that is it's has well-worn formulaic tropes, and I like that he presented a film that to me felt more realistic. My
Yeah.
best comp that I could think of in the theater was David O. Russell's movie The Fighter,
Oh,
because
yeah,
that's
yeah.
I'm a sucker for fighting movies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I grew up on the Rocky movies. I love Million Dollar Baby,
Mhm.
Clint Eastwood's movie,
Oh, yeah.
and
Love that one.
I love David O. Russell's movie The Fighter, but The Fighter's a movie that to me has like an energy that feels grounded and realistic, and
Yeah.
it feels less like a Hollywoodized version of this story and more like what it's like in real life. And this movie felt like even more so
Yeah.
that style, and
Yeah.
everything just felt really real. I felt like the fight scenes were done really well, and the
Yeah.
like it just felt like people were actually hitting each other in the face
Yeah.
really hard, and it felt brutal and kind of like almost tough to watch sometimes. And uh overall I enjoyed the
Yeah.
film, but what were your general thoughts?
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. The fight scenes were great because they were filmed outside the ring.
Mhm.
There's never any shots inside the ring when they're fighting, and it's a much more observational feel to it, which does make it feel much more real. And I do appreciate that he kind of subverts the tropes of this genre. But there is a training montage, which I thought was not the best.
Yeah. Uh,
But I was kind of like, why are you doing this? Like, this is a, it didn't feel like it fit. And it was also kind of boring. But
yeah.
that, I mean, that aside, I kind of knew what to expect. I had watched a review before, and it was just kind of saying like, this is not a sports movie, really. It's kind of like it's much slower. It's much, it's paced very differently, and it's not falling into these tropes. So I knew what to expect, and I really did enjoy it too. I thought The Rock was amazing. I thought Emily Blunt was amazing. Um, I do have some problems with it though as well. I felt like there were a couple times it got a little too melodramatic. Um, I also think that um, that I'm trying to remember. There was something else, but it overall was really good. Oh yeah, it felt I could kind of feel the budget a little bit. It didn't have as big of a scope as I thought it was going to. It just kind of felt like we were really only in like three places. And I know
Sure.
that there's more than that, but it just kind of felt like, okay, I'm not feeling like we're in this room a lot, and it feels very I kind of felt the budget of that, which is fine. It didn't make the movie bad, but it was just something that I noticed. But again, overall, I really liked it. And I think people should see it. I think more people should see it for sure.
I get what you're saying about feeling the budget a little bit,
Yeah.
but I also think that that's just sort of like a Benny Safdie thing. Like I think
Yeah,
he
yeah.
has the shooting style that feels like him making a movie with his friends, kind
Yes.
of like
Yes.
everything's very handheld from I was honestly watching the movie going, I don't know if there's a single shot in this entire movie that's on sticks locked off. Like it feels
Yeah. Yeah.
100% handheld. It feels, but in that way, I also feel like there's this grounded, gritty realness that to it. There is an aspect, speaking of like him and Emily Blunt, and the fact that this is more of a kind of human drama. And again, like it's interesting because like I like sports movies. I love sports movies, but the sports that I like to watch in real life the most are football, then basketball, then I don't know. I don't even know what's next. Like, but
Yeah, yeah.
like fighting is I don't like watching boxing in real life. I don't
Yeah,
like
yeah.
watching, but I love movies wise, fighting movies I love. There's something
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the drama of
Oh,
fight
yeah.
and there's something about like those training montages of like how are you going to get yourself back and be
Yeah,
ready
yeah,
for
yeah.
like it's always, part of it, and I love when they can find a wrinkle to it. So there's a lot that this movie just for my personal taste just worked for me. But I will say that yeah, there's an aspect of and we'll talk about this once we get into spoilers. There's an aspect of his relationship with Emily Blunt's character, several aspects actually, that I felt I like I think could be potentially controversial for some audience members.
I could see that. Yep.
And there's, like, some questions that I have about
Yeah.
how Benny Safdie got certain details and who he talked to and how certain details were verified, because they're presented in a way that I don't necessarily dislike, but it depends on, like, who the storyteller is that could make it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I know what you're talking about, and I think we will get into it. One other thing I do wanna say with, Benny's shooting style, I really did love the look and the feel of this. He shot most of this on 16 millimeter film, and some parts in 70 millimeter, like IMAX, which is cool. I didn't see it on IMAX screen, but I liked the overall look that he chose. Everything about this movie is very intentional, which is good. Just like you were talking about, like this is a director who knows what he wants to do and is doing it, whether you like it or not. And I overall liked it. I like the confidence that he did bring to it, but I also appreciate that like the movie doesn't look very good intentionally, which is why I think it looks good. Like the 16 millimeter film is lower quality, than 35 millimeter, which if you're shooting on film, that's what people usually shoot on.
When
So I
that's
like that aspect of it.
That's why my comp was, The Fighter, because I feel like The Fighter has that same kind
Right.
of feel to it,
Yep.
where it's just
Yeah.
sort of it's less polished than, say, a
Yeah.
movie like Cinderella Man
Yeah.
or even Million Dollar Baby, which I really like. Those movies that feel like they're very cinematic in their,
Yep. Mhm.
presentation. But yeah, I like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So, well,
um
should we get into spoilers?
let's do it. Okay. So,
Okay.
breaking down this movie, I'll also say we start the movie off with The Rock kind of doing, or Mark Kerr is doing an interview, and we're intercutting that with footage of him fighting, but he's talking about what he's trying to do while he's fighting. I will say this right off the bat too. I had to look this up. I was like, how old is Mark Kerr? Mark
Yeah.
Kerr is 56 years old, which means at the time that this movie took place between 1997 and 2000, Mark Kerr was like
30.
27 to
Yeah.
or 28 to 31 years old. And that is one thing, is like Dwayne Johnson is 53 and he is literally playing almost 30 years younger than
Yeah.
he is. And I didn't I'll say this, I didn't think about it while I was watching the movie. I didn't think about it until the end of the movie when it showed the real Mark Kerr. And then
Right, right.
I was like, Dwayne Johnson is a much older man than that guy.
I did actually think about it because I was like, "How old is he?"
Yeah.
Like, he's yeah, I thought about that, but what year that is kinda funny, but whatever. I think overall it works,
As
like
good of shape as Dwayne Johnson is in, and he's in incredible shape, and
oh, yeah.
he's just huge in this movie,
Yes.
but it's not in that way where sometimes when guys get older, like, everything gets, like, so veiny and vascular that you're like, "Are you okay?" Like, he looks a little, like, smoother than I'm used to him looking, or guys his
Yeah, yeah,
age looking,
yeah,
which I don't know if they did that with makeup or, what,
yeah,
but, he's got definitely some veinage
yeah,
going on,
yeah,
but it's not like the kinda those intense veins that you see with Cena and
yeah,
some other guy,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
and,
but
like,
I did just look at it. The Rock is only 4 years younger than Mark Kerr.
right. Like
That's
Mark
so
Kerr and The
funny.
Rock were contemporaries, who
Yes.
were The
Yeah.
Rock, like, Dwayne Johnson was doing, fake wrestling
Yeah,
after he
yeah.
played college football for the University of
For the
Miami,
Miami, yeah. Uh-huh.
Miami Hurricanes, go
Yeah.
Canes, but like, they were, like, the same age, and so it's like,
Yeah,
it's
I
so
know.
weird that, like, 30 years later, Dwayne Johnson's like, "I'm gonna play you when you were
Yeah.
27," and
Is
it's like,
it like, really? Oh,
"What?"
okay. Like,
Uh,
alright.
yeah, but I gotta say, like, I think what helped me was that I didn't know a lot about Mark Kerr before this
Yes,
movie started.
yeah, it did help. It does help.
And so I just was kinda like, "Well, I'll just accept that." In my mind, I was like, "Maybe he's a guy who's, like, in his late 30s, who's kind of coming
Yeah.
back." Because the way that they talk about him, even in the movie, is that it's sort of like a second chance that he's getting, that he's
Yeah.
getting a new
Yeah.
lease. But I think that it was because Mark Kerr was a freestyle wrestler in college who was very
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
and maybe even, was on, like, the US Olympic team, but now he's getting a new life in this new mixed martial arts
Right.
sport,
Right.
where the idea of the Ultimate Fighting Championship used to be, when it was first started out, was like all these different styles
Mhm.
of fighting, whether it's Muay Thai or kickboxing or straight up boxing or freestyle wrestling, Greco-Roman
Yeah.
wrestling.
Yeah.
They all compete to see whose style is the ultimate style. And Mark Kerr's whole thing was just submission and pounding, was just,
Yep.
let me
Yep.
submit you, let me use my strength to get you into a hold, and then I'm gonna beat just pound on the top of your head, which is why the title, The Smashing Machine, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I also want to say this too. Um, I feel like in the like with Dwayne Johnson playing a character who's nearly 30 years younger than he is in real life, most movies would have gone with some kind of probably AI digital de-aging
Yeah.
to make him look younger. And I just feel like we are in the golden age of practical prosthetics between Colin Farrell in The Penguin and Bradley Cooper in Maestro, and like I thought that the practical prosthetics they did on Dwayne Johnson in this movie looked phenomenal.
They were amazing.
Yeah.
I was blown away, and I agree, like, I can make that jump. With
Mhm.
this movie, like, I made the jump. If you digitally de-age someone like heavily, it's like I'm taken out of it a little bit. Like,
I'm gonna be thinking about it the whole movie.
yeah, and for some reason, like the prosthetics on this look so good. And I think about like The Hobbit, and I don't feel like their prosthetics looked as good, but this looked amazing. Sometimes you can see the seams, and like
Well,
anyway,
think
but this one
about
I couldn't see the seams. Like I totally agree. It was really, really, really good. It made him look. I could tell that it was a rock, but it made him look like a completely different character. So it totally fit.
Yeah, I mean, think about like we talked about Richard Donner's Superman and that
Yeah,
kid that
yeah,
plays young Clark Kent, even though he looks like the same age as Christopher Reeve,
yeah,
and they put prosthetics on him to try to make him look more like Christopher Reeve. But
yeah.
if you like ever since I was a kid, when I would watch that movie, I'd be like, why is that guy's nose so weird? And it's just like you can just tell that there's makeup on
Yeah,
him. And I
yeah,
just but like this, you're looking and it's like there are scenes where Dwayne Johnson is covered in sweat and he's like rubbing his nose and like doing things like that. And
yeah,
I'm like, that's a fake nose that he has on,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
not going anywhere. And it's like it's sweating like a real
It's
nose would
crazy.
sweat. And
Yeah,
I just am really, really impressed with modern prosthetics. I
yes,
just think there's been so many examples lately of like of just work that's like
yeah,
that's amazing. That's magic,
yeah. Yeah,
and
shout out to the makeup team, seriously, they did an amazing job.
they could totally wind up with a nomination and maybe
I
even
think
a
they
win.
should.
Yeah.
I think for sure a nomination, and they probably because it looks so good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's fantastic. But yeah, so he's kind of just the thing about Mark Kerr is he's a very charismatic and likable character from the beginning of the film. He's
yeah,
doing an interview where he's explaining his fighting philosophy, but he's just sort of smiling through it.
mhm,
And he's like, well, you know what? He's like, if a guy was coming after you, what would you do? He's
yeah,
like, he's like, so if he hits me, I might want to punish him for doing that because
yeah,
I have to do it, right? Because
mhm.
he's gonna hurt me. And he's like, yeah, like just this like kind of
Yeah,
smiling, charismatic guy.
yeah,
But that's also an aspect of the film that I think is really interesting is that Dwayne Johnson is sort of playing multiple layers. It's an aspect, it's a thing that makes the performance really interesting because he's playing Mark Kerr, the entertainer, and Mark Kerr, the fighter who's trying to conceal an active addiction.
yeah,
And, like all of these, it's just, there's these interesting layers
yeah,
to the character. Yeah.
yeah.
What happens next?
I think it shows him like starting out, and he's in like Brazil or something, and he's at this fight, and he fights. It seems like one after another. They kind of have this, and he beats everybody, which I think is kind of going on in the interview that you're talking about.
Right. I think we're seeing it, and
Yeah,
he's talking about how he's just like, this was, mind you, this isn't like weeks between fights. This is like
yeah,
next man up, next man up,
yeah,
next man up. He's like,
yeah,
so I literally beat like 8 guys back to
yeah.
back to back to back,
Yeah, and
you
he's
know?
just talking about the feeling that he gets, like this is it's a rush. There's nothing else like it. And you do see that he is like he knocks out the first guy. I mean, he's bleeding all over himself, the other guy, and he's genuinely concerned about him, which kind of goes into this character, which I really like that about the character,
Mhm.
that
He's always checking on the other guys,
yeah,
like, is he gonna be okay? Is he
yeah,
and even when later on in the film, there's a scene where he feels like he gets cheated out of a match,
yeah,
but even how the way he deals with that
yeah,
seems like about as level-headed as you could expect him to.
yeah,
Like, you keep thinking, like, he's gonna come unglued, he's gonna,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
throw a chair or, like, but he just kinda comes up and he's like, "Hey, I just wanna make sure it's clear," like, he's not supposed to do that. He's
yeah,
not supposed to
yeah,
he's like, "I don't," and then when he sees the guy later, he's like, "Hey, man, you're not supposed to do that." He's like,
mhm,
I get it, heat of the moment,"
mhm.
It's like
Yeah, yeah,
it's like
yeah,
handle but I liked that about this movie. I
yeah,
liked
yeah,
that instead of opting for the more dramatic choice, they
yeah.
would go for something that feels more human or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that probably is. I imagine that's probably how he was. But yeah, you could definitely be like, oh yeah, this guy. You could have made that a much more dramatic interaction between the two. Of Mark Kerr getting really pissed at the other fighter because he was doing something illegal, and they have a whole thing. But yeah, they didn't. They didn't go that way.
But yeah,
And
then
then
we get to their home, where
yes,
he lives with his girlfriend Dawn, played by Emily Blunt, and, I'll say I heard a few reviews say, like, I didn't really think there was much to this character. I actually think that Dawn, again, this is the thing that I'm like, this is the one of the more interesting aspects of the film to me,
Yeah.
and it's also potentially one of the more controversial aspects of the film
Yes.
because Dawn is a pretty flawed character as presented
Yes.
in this film,
Yeah.
you know? And they have a tough relationship,
Yeah.
but and I think they both have like their fair share of
Yeah.
things that they could work on. But usually the trope in this kind of movie is like the long-suffering, patient, loving girlfriend who's like, my big strong man. That's
Mhm.
like, I'll be here waiting for you when you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
Dawn is like more toxic in a way that
Yeah.
feels more realistic, or like it just feels more like, oh, these are real people where like they each have their flaws and they each have their issues. And I mean, the first confrontation we see is like she's making him a smoothie and he
Yeah.
comes out, drinks the smoothie, and he's like, you use the soy milk. He's like, or no,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
use
Skim milk, yeah.
skim milk. He's like, I switched back to
Yeah, yeah.
whole. Then he's like, it's all right, But like, you also see him that like his whole thing is he's like, it's okay. And then he remakes it and goes and sits down next to her, and he's like, that was really nice of you. That was, thank you
Yeah.
for doing that. Thank you for, yeah,
I did, yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic between the 2 because they're not good for each other. They're the couple that like, "Why are you guys together? Like, you're not helping each other. You both have your problems." Like, Dawn, I can see how people are thinking that she's a very shallow character. I don't think she's I think she is presented as a shallow person, but Emily Blunt plays her with a lot of depth that can kind of go unnoticed.
It's
Um,
also interesting to put these 2 from Jungle Cruise
yeah.
together in a movie that's so much more serious
Oh
and, like,
yeah.
really see them get to, like, because I think we all knew that Emily Blunt was an actress with
Oh
chops,
yeah. 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 Yeah.
but to see like, I mean, this is the first time I've ever actually seen Dwayne Johnson in a relationship in a movie, and I believed it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I think they both did a great job. I think for Mark Kerr, the problem is that he's kind of passive aggressive and like
exactly. He has a
he's
very hard time with with just
yes.
saying
Yeah.
what, you know, because
Because he's kind of trying to be too nice.
that's it totally. But that's a really there's this really interesting thing where it's like what you expect the trope to be from not only this genre, but just sort of like what we know in culture about people like this is that like he's gonna have anger issues
Yeah.
and the most of the drama in their relationship is going to stem from him being like a guy who can't express his emotions and then
Yes.
takes them out on his girlfriend and then apologizes later because I kept expecting that. I was like, oh, this nice guy thing is a front. But
Yeah.
then I found something more relatable, at least to me, which is like, oh, he's like a huge people pleaser,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to a fault, to where he doesn't know how to communicate
Yeah.
what his needs are, and he doesn't know how to communicate boundaries, and he doesn't know how to establish boundaries and hold them. But
Yeah.
he's trying the whole time to like be nice. He's always like, even when he's like, oh, you made the shake wrong, and then she's like, obviously like, okay, sorry, but he's like, no, no, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. That's really, really nice. And like you said, kind of passive aggressive by like throwing it out in front of her instead of being like,
Mhm.
again, there are like details to the way that this relationship is displayed that I find really interesting and
Yeah.
intriguing and human
Mhm.
and layered in a really interesting way. And here's the I'm just going to come out and say it. Here's the reason why this might be potentially controversial is there is a well documented sort of pattern of domestic abuse when it comes to men in these lines of work, like
Mhm.
football players, like men in
Mhm.
contact sports.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a kind of like a pattern of like, oh, it turns out like that guy just got caught hitting his girlfriend or hitting his wife on camera,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
at a hotel or something.
Mhm.
And so I sort of expected that to be in here somewhere. And there are a few scenes where he lets out some anger, not on her, on furniture, and
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
displays some of that strength and some of that hidden anger, but he never hits her the entire movie.
No.
And I would actually say that for the most part in their conflicts, she's the one kind of in their worst conflicts, she's the one kind of pestering and needling him.
Yeah.
And that's where I go, interesting dynamic that we don't
Yeah.
normally see. But I also go, where's Benny Safdie getting the
Yes.
info for these fights? Because is he
Yeah.
just talking to Mark Kerr? Is this from a book that like did he talk to Dawn as well? And did she confirm these, like,
Yeah, yeah.
because if she was a victim of domestic violence and he's framing it in this movie as though she was not, that's really controversial, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, I don't know. It was based on a book, and I don't know. Because I totally saw that too. Because Dawn is very much she's kind of selfish.
I was gonna say the word selfish. I was gonna
Yeah,
say she kinda just, like, cares about, about her Dawn, like, "You need to make sure
yeah,
you're taking care of me first,"
yeah.
and doesn't really understand the high demand nature of her
Mhm.
boyfriend's job,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and it's again, like, it's 2 people that probably shouldn't be together that somehow need each other, you know? And, so it's very I would love to know where he got that from as well.
Yeah. I mean, so, we go out to, Japan, which is this place
Yeah.
where they're hosting a lot of MMA style fights, and we're doing a lot of intercutting of, like, Mark Kerr doing interviews and things like that, and through this, we find out that a friend of his from college named, I think, Mark Coleman,
Yeah, Mark Coleman, yeah.
who again, I really liked this actor.
Yeah, yeah, he
I
did a great job.
There's a cool thing that Benny Safdie does and Josh Safdie does it too, where they just cast real people in roles,
Yeah.
and, like, this guy just feels like the real deal. I don't really know a lot about this. I don't know if he's, like, an actual UFC fighter that they just put in this movie or what, but he feels like the real deal. He just feels,
Yeah.
like he doesn't feel like an actor. He feels.
Yeah, he feels legit. So his name's Ryan Bader, and I
Mhm.
do believe he was a fighter. Um, yeah, it looks like he was yeah, light heavyweight, heavyweight. I don't know where he fights, and I think he does, yeah, UFC. But this guy did really, really good job.
Yeah, I mean, not only does he feel like a real UFC fighter, he also, does a solid job with his scene work that he's given.
Yeah, and
Um,
he's especially the character that he's playing. He plays it really, really well because he's the friend, but he's the friend who's fed up with all the stuff that his best friend is doing, and he's kind of at this point where, like, listen, you got to help yourself. Like, I'm not, just tell me what happened. Like, I know you're a user, I know how this goes. So it was also another interesting character, which is kind of hard to play, and he plays it really, really well.
Yeah, yeah, and I can't remember at what point we first get introduced to the idea that, or to the fact that Mark Kerr is struggling with opioid addiction.
Yeah, I think
Um,
it's somewhere in the Japan stuff. He either comes back or right before he goes, but he's rummaging through his house looking for something, and we see him actually shoot up, whatever it is, he's got some sort of opiate thing going on.
and
But
I mean, we have that early scene on when he's like in the doctor's office, right? And he's got the black eyes, and he's talking
yep,
to the
yep.
kid
The
and the
old
doctor,
lady.
and
Yeah.
explaining to the old lady what the Ultimate Fighting Championship is. And we see that he's got a really good relationship with his doctor, and that I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
doing what he does, he has to be seen regularly. We also see that he prefers to pay out of pocket, pay cash, and not go through insurance. And
Yeah.
all of this is probably because he doesn't want his insurance seeing how many different doctors he's going to get as much
Yeah.
medication as he needs to feed his habit. And, so, but like, he deals with all of it like a gentleman. Like, he goes
Yes.
about his addiction like, shaking hands and smiling, and he's not like a junkie scratching.
Yeah, yeah.
He knows how to present a good front to people.
Yeah.
But yeah, they go over to Japan. Coleman's training him at this point,
Yeah.
and is kind of managing him. They hear from this league in Japan that's called the Pride League,
Yeah.
that there's a new rule which says that when an opponent is down, facing down, if they're down, if you have them pinned
Yeah.
down, you can't knee them in the top of the head. That's a new rule. But if their face is up, you can hit. And it's just that's I
Yeah.
laughed at that scene when they were like,
Yeah.
"Well, what happens if they're on their back?" They're like, "Yeah, you can punch them in the face if they're on
Yeah.
their back." And I was just like, "Okay, I like these rules
Yeah.
are funny."
Yeah.
But then, yeah, he's got this really, really big fight, and up till now, he's been undefeated as a
Yes.
UFC fighter. And I thought this scene was really fascinating because I found myself. How did you? I found myself really frustrated at Dawn. Like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, it was Yes, this is where, yeah, I mean, it goes into her character because she shows up in Japan, and you can see that Mark Coleman is like, oh man, like
Well, it's almost
she's
like she,
here.
like, surprises him backstage before the
Yeah,
fight, and
yeah,
it's kinda like, "It's fine that you're here, but, like, he needs to focus,"
yeah,
and because Mark Kerr's not very good at communicating because he's a people pleaser, he doesn't he's so mad he can't even talk to her, but
yeah,
just because he can't talk to her, she's, like, mad at him, and so she's yelling at him,
yeah.
and then, but it's
Like,
like
why aren't you paying attention to me? Is
right.
overall, which goes into the selfishness, but yeah, ugh, a great scene as
Yeah.
far as acting. But I was just like, oh my gosh, this
Well,
is so
she's trying to
uncomfortable.
be really soft with him. She's like, "Hey, I'm
Yeah,
here," and she's, like, trying to cuddle with him, and he keeps pulling away and not saying anything, but it's like, you can see it's because, like, Mark Kerr almost has this thing where he's like, "Hey, like, I don't like to, speak
yeah,
angrily to my girlfriend. I like to be really
yeah,
soft and sweet. That's the front I put forward, but before a fight, I've gotta, like, get myself in the
yeah.
mindset of being, like I've gotta be in the mode where I'm gonna go pound on somebody out there."
Mhm.
And when she walks back there, he's like, "I don't have whatever she needs from me right now, I don't have it."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so she's sitting there, and then she's like, "What, are you just gonna give me the silent treatment? Like, you're not gonna talk to me?" And then she's like, "Oh, that's really nice, Mark. That's really cool."
yeah,
And then he's like, "Oh my god, it's the biggest night of my life. Please,
yeah,
please,
yeah.
don't do this right now. Please don't," but
Mhm.
like, but the complexity of it is that he needs to make sure that it's communicated to her beforehand, that my
Yeah,
process is when I'm about to fight, I can't see you. Like,
yeah,
it's kinda like I remember the documentary Free Solo with Alex Honnold, who
mhm,
is, like, the
mhm.
one of the world's greatest free solo climbers,
Yeah, yeah,
and there's the whole thing where he, like, tells his girlfriend, like, "I might not be able to, like, I might not be able to free solo El Capitan because I'm in love with you, and
yeah,
that
yeah,
messes with my head because
yeah,
before I met you, when I would climb, I wasn't thinking about my future with a girlfriend or with kids, and now when I'm climbing, I'm thinking about you, and
mhm.
I like that that's an element of that documentary where he's like, "Being in love with you makes what I do harder because
Yeah,
I have to consider you while I'm doing it,"
yeah,
and I see that in here where Mark's like, "I do this to make money for," it's like, "It's how I pay for everything our place that we live in, and we got a nice pool, nice cars, all that stuff, but in
yeah,
order to, like, not die, and in order to stay healthy enough to keep doing it, I need to focus."
mhm.
And I just think what's shown in this scene is that, like, he has not communicated that adequately to her,
No, no.
and if
He
he has, she's not heeding the
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and he has, I agree, I think he hasn't communicated it well enough, and that's what she's kind of, like, wanting him to do that, but she also wants to be there because she feels like she needs to be needed. It's, yeah, again, a bad dynamic between the 2 that, like, he needs to communicate better, and she needs to understand when he does communicate, but they're not doing neither of them is doing that.
Well, and it's also just bad timing. It's just like
Yeah, yeah,
now she wants to have a conversation about, like, "Okay, if you didn't want me here, you should have just said that." But it's
yeah,
like, "Okay, cool. This is a conversation we should be having, but not right before I'm about to go fight this guy."
yeah,
I we need to have this conversation later because
yeah,
and anyway, he winds up going out and losing.
yeah,
And he takes his first L, but part of the reason why he loses is the guy gets on top of him while he's in that lower position
yeah,
and just starts kneeing him in the skull over and
yeah,
over again.
yeah,
Yeah. But also, like, he talks about it afterward that he's like, "I couldn't move." Like,
yeah,
he spends so much of the fight down and his
yeah,
friends yelling at him like, "Mark, you gotta get up. Like,
yeah, yeah.
gotta fix your position, dude. You gotta get up." And
Yeah,
yeah,
and he's really, I mean, he gets knocked out, so they
yeah,
stop the fight, and then when he gets up, he goes to the ref, and he's trying to tell him he's, that's illegal, which we all know because of that scene
right,
that that is illegal. And so he leaves the ring, and he goes and finds the, I don't know, the president of Pride or whatever, and tells him about it. And then he goes in the back, and well, on his way out, Don is trying to talk with him, and he, they show this in the trailer. He, like, pulls his arm away from her,
right.
and they're obviously, he's it but it
This
ends up being
this
a, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, no, no, finish what you were saying.
I was gonna say it ends up being a no contest because he tells them, and it was an illegal move. So, but he's kind of like he doesn't know how to take that. He's never lost before. So this is like all new territory for him, and they're all trying to tell him that that's okay, but he's obviously not dealing with it well.
Yeah, even before this fight happened, like in an interview, someone's like, "Well, what would happen if you lost?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "I don't know." He's like, "I've never lost before, so I don't know what that feels like."
Yeah.
He's like, "I can't," but I really like this sequence, and this is one of these sequences that's like a really strong performance stretch for Dwayne Johnson because again, what we're expecting, the trope of the genre is that he's going to walk backstage and come unglued, that he's going to
Yeah, yeah.
start
Yeah.
throwing things and screaming, but it's like there's this tension that Benny Safdie I think does really well in this sequence where he walks up to the president of the league and you're like, is he going to freak out and scream at this guy? But instead he's like very soft. He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Hey, he need me in the head and that's against the rules." He's like, "I just want to make it clear, okay?" He's
Mhm.
like, "Arigato," and I didn't
Yeah.
lose, okay? And then he's like, "Thank you." But he's like, then he gets in the elevator and we think, okay, he's gonna start like punching this elevator. He's gonna like break the walls.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it opens up and somebody else gets on the elevator with him, and he just sort of looks the other way and is just like breathing and trying to calm himself down.
Well, I
And
think
then
they're going to get on and then they get off.
right, because they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
okay, there's like a
Yeah.
giant gorilla man in who's like
Yeah.
huffing and puffing and covered in
Yeah.
sweat. And
Yeah.
then he gets to his locker room, and we still think like he's gonna like pick stuff up and start throwing stuff. Like that's the sports movie trope, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
going into the locker room. But even then, he's still like he actually sits down and he's huffing and puffing, and then he starts sobbing. He just
Yeah.
starts
Yeah.
instead of punching things and throwing things, he just starts crying. And then, we see him with the doctor and he's got a headache and he's got some stitches that he needs to get. And the doctor's trying
Yeah.
to give him pain meds and calm him down. And he has this conversation with the guy that he lost to. And we can tell that he's still kind of mad at Dawn, but he still
Yeah.
doesn't even really know how to communicate with her
Mhm.
still about
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and he goes up to the guy. He's all buddy buddy with the guy who just beat him, because he's just trying to be nice to these
Mhm.
guys, and the other guy he gave him 4 stitches, and then this is when Dawn takes their picture, and she's just crying like while she's taking the picture.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think after this they just go out. Don't they just kind of go out in the streets? I'm trying to remember exactly what happened, but
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I honestly, the sequence of events in this film sort of elude me because
yeah,
I think
me
it's
as
sort of
well.
the way that like I said, it's sort of jazzy. There, even to
Yeah.
the soundtrack and stuff, it doesn't really follow like these
No.
traditional expected beats, but we definitely see stuff with him and Don that seem like what we see why they enjoy each other and stuff like that. I think that there's like an overall softness from him that she really the idea of this
Yeah.
giant guy who's pounding people for a living, who's just like really kind of soft inside and
Mhm.
and sweet. But his failing, at least as far as the movie presents it, seems to be his inability to just communicate with his partner
Mhm.
what he needs from her as far as like emotional support and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
her failing seems to be that she doesn't seem to understand how demanding what he's doing is of his focus and his,
Yeah. Well,
you
and
know
she pushes his buttons in the worst time
mhm,
to try and bring out something that she wants him to do, but he's never going to do because that's just not who he is.
right.
And so, yeah, again, it just makes it bad. And yeah, I think after this, I mean,
He kinda spirals because he doesn't really know how
yeah,
to deal with the loss, and his addiction gets worse.
yeah,
And yeah, and this is like where we wind up with him like sitting on the couch and her walking in one day and just finding him just sort
yeah,
of zoned out. And she's like, "Seriously, dude?" She's like,
hmm,
"This is pathetic." And he's like, "What?
yeah,
What?" And she's like, "You're high." But this is like one of the only moments where we really see him. It's like what we expected to see in the locker room. He stands
yeah,
up and he walks past her and he's not even really saying anything or doing anything, and he just elbows the door
yeah,
and just breaks this door in half, like
yeah,
off of the hinges, and it's like, "Oh,
yeah.
jeez." It's like, okay. But again, like, he doesn't hit her, but he definitely
No,
shows this, like, crazy strength, this
yeah,
insane,
yeah,
uh, but this sort of leads to it all boils up to, like, she calls Mark Coleman one day, and she's like, "Hey,
yeah. Which again, you would expect, because Mark Coleman, he's got his own family, and you would
Mhm.
expect to see him, because I think he overdoses,
Right.
right? Like, but we just were in Mark Coleman's house, and he's with his daughter and his kids and his wife, and then he gets a call, and it's Dawn, and she's freaking out, and she's like, he wouldn't wake up, like I couldn't get him to wake up, and I couldn't, he was unresponsive, and the ambulance came, and they couldn't get him, so he's like, okay, I'm going to be on the first flight out, and he flies to Phoenix where they live, and he goes, and this is the scene that, like, I think uh
This is the Oscar scene.
yeah, well, this is an Oscar scene,
Yeah.
and this was also, again, I was very um impressed with Ryan Bader. I was more impressed obviously with The Rock, because this is just, but Ryan Bader, so Mark
Ryan Bader's
Coleman.
great in this
Yeah,
scene. They're both it's a really well executed
yeah,
scene from the writing, directing, and the performances.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because he, like, goes into his bed, and they're just kind of talking. He's like, what's going on? He's like, well, I couldn't wake up, I just, they like I was he's like, I was in this state where, like, and he's like, okay, like, well, what was, and basically The Rock is trying to play everything down, and he's like, they asked me who the president was, and I said it was Ronald Reagan, and, like, and then Mark Coleman is just like, listen, dude, you got to stop, like, don't give me all this, like, just
Yeah,
tell
he's
me
just
what really happened.
he's like, "Hey, man, come on." He's like,
Yeah,
"It's me, man. Just stop
yeah,
it." He's like, What's going on?" And
yeah,
then Dwayne Johnson just breaks down.
yeah,
Just breaks down and he's like, "It's okay, man. It's okay." And then he's like,
yeah,
and it's the way that Dwayne Johnson does this, the masking, like the tough
yeah,
guy,
yeah,
and it's this I think this is what is interesting about his performance and about the way Benny Safdie has written this character, and I'm sure
yeah,
it's based on the way it's portrayed in this book and maybe him talking to Mark Kerr, but
mhm,
it's like all of the energy that he puts into this smiley, sweet, nice guy, fun, charismatic guy thing, where usually all that energy gets taken out in the ring and nobody else, like there's, and then on top of that, there's this performance of like, I'm fine, I'm in control of my addiction. I'm not,
yeah,
that I do it for the doctors, I do it for the pharmacists, I do it for everybody. And this final, like, I've seen this breakdown in so many recovery rooms,
right,
being, in sobriety and in
right,
recovery. I've seen this thing of like having to admit that you have a problem with substances
yeah,
so many times, and the way that Dwayne Johnson executes this is like really impressive.
yeah,
I teared up in the theater, and that's where I nodded and I went, "All right, well done, dude. Well
yeah,
done." And I was like, "I have no problem with you getting a nomination for that." You
yeah,
know? Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, you see this scene in the trailer a little bit, but yeah, I was blown away too, just. And then they have this moment where Mark Coleman is like, "Listen, you whatever you got to do, you got to get better. Like, you can't keep doing this to yourself." And I think he even says something like, "You really only have yourself to blame. Like, this is on you." Like, holding him accountable, but
Mhm.
doing it, like, in a very loving way. And it was a really, really brilliant scene. Like, the way that it all rolls out, and the friendship that these two have, because it's not even, they just say that they have a friendship, but then it's shown really well in this scene between the two fighters. And
Yeah.
so a great scene, but then I think after this he decides he does need to go to rehab.
Yeah, and
um
what that means is he has to pull out of a tournament,
yeah,
in Japan, but, Mark Coleman winds up going and kind of, like,
hmm,
getting back into fighting because Mark Kerr has to pull out, and what Kerr's momentary absence, does is it sort of reignites Coleman's fighting career because Coleman
hmm,
goes out and he wins this tournament, and now he's like everyone's like, oh, I guess Mark Coleman still got some gas in the tank,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, Mark Kerr gets sober at like a 28-day
hmm,
inpatient facility, uh, and and then comes out and this is, I mean, this is, the more complexities to the and to
hmm,
the selfishness of Dawn and stuff, because like Dawn obviously wanted him to get sober. She didn't want him to overdose and die, but now she's like telling all of her friends, she's like, he's walking around the apartment like
yeah,
judging me all the time. He's all
yeah,
high and mighty because he's been sober for like what? He's been sober for like 2 months, and now
yeah,
he knows everything about, you know, and it's just this like this thing of, like, kind of that she almost thrives off of the drama,
Yeah.
and again, this is one of those things that I'm like, "This could be controversial because if this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
not an accurate portrayal of this woman, if this
Yeah.
woman actually was just, like, being abused by
Yeah, yeah.
her drug addict, UFC fighter boyfriend, and we're getting this portrayal of her that's just, like, kinda, like, annoying and mean, and I don't
Mhm.
know, but I did find the portrayal to be kind of it to me, it's like, I don't know, I think that a lot of people in relationships with people who are professional fighters are
Yeah.
kind of fighters themselves in a way, like, I think that
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I
Well, yeah, and I think it's just a this movie overall is not that much about the fighting.
Mhm,
It's very much I felt like the theme of the movie was losing. It's about Mark Kerr dealing with loss. How does he
yeah,
deal with loss? But how does he deal with the loss or the fact that he is losing in his relationship?
yeah,
Like because it's more of a relationship movie than it is a fighting movie, or at least it's kind of like 50-50, it's but so much of the story is about their relationship and how they handle things. And I mean, this is a type of relationship where when you have a relationship with someone who's not good for you, what does it do to you?
mhm.
How does that help? And again, they both have their faults, and that's a huge part of this story that kind of goes into the theme of everything that he's going through in the ring as well.
I think that's a fantastic insight that this movie is about losing, that it's
Yeah,
about how this character learns to deal with loss and disappointment.
yeah,
And, and in life, just like how do you deal with disappointment? How do you deal with
yeah,
things not going the way you wanted them to go?
yeah.
How do you bounce back? How do you keep and there are a lot maybe that's why I like fighting movies because there are a lot of fighting movies that have these themes. It's a theme that sort of runs through the entire Rocky franchise.
Hmm.
It's what kicked off the franchise is a movie
Yeah,
about a guy who loses at the end, but
yeah,
he's just like, "Can I lose with dignity? Can I go
mhm,
the distance? Can I," you
yeah,
know, and throughout the franchise, it's about like, like the third movie is about like, okay, you're at the top now and now you're back down. How do you deal with
mhm,
that? How do
mhm.
you, there's the line in Rocky Balboa where he talks to his son and goes, "It's not about how hard you can get hit. It's about
Yes.
how, or how hard you
Uh-huh.
can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep
Yeah,
getting
get
back up."
back up or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah. But it's like I think that's a really good insight because a lot of fighting movies are about dealing with defeat, dealing with disappointment.
yeah,
And this movie does it in a way that feels really I just think there's something about Benny's writing and directing that just
yeah,
so kind of it just feels so honest and real
yeah. Yeah, and at the end of this fight, because they have a fight, because
Mhm,
she went out with her friend, she got drunk and, all that, and then she needs some, like, Advil or something, and she gets it, and that makes him mad because it's right in front of him, and she's mad. She blows up on him, and "You're so high and mighty, and you're all this," kinda like just like you talked about. And then at the end of their fight, he had bought her a bowl in Japan that had gold in it. She gets that bowl, and she throws it and shatters it on the ground.
it's a kintsugi bowl, which is,
There you go.
yeah, it's a Japanese style of, art where you remake a piece of pottery that if it breaks and you usually do it with gold. They
Yeah.
piece it back together with lines of gold, and the idea is that it makes it even more beautiful that it was remade.
Mhm.
And again, the metaphor for what you're
Yes.
ta yeah, mhm,
Yep. Yeah,
yep,
because you know, they have this fight, and then she's gone for a little while, and then she does come back, and she has remade the bowl.
mhm,
She has remade it with just super glue, which is
yeah.
again kind of like it should be made with gold, but their relationship is just made with super glue, I guess. So
Yeah. Yeah, I found this interesting too that, like, I guess he couldn't even do Advil, that it's like I'm like,
yeah,
"You were addicted to opioids." There's a big difference between ibuprofen and
yeah,
acetaminophen
yeah,
and, like, OxyContin. Like,
yeah.
there's a big different like, they're just different substances. Like,
Mhm.
they work chemically differently on the brain, but I don't know. I don't know like, I can't speak for his
Yeah,
program or what the program of a person who's addicted to
yeah.
painkillers is like. I don't know, but
Yeah, I can't speak to I did also find that interesting, but if something sets you off,
yeah.
you don't want somebody who you feel again like he just can't communicate with her. Like, would you please not do that in front of me because that sets me off, and
I
that
did
makes
get
it hard for me.
I got a kick out of this scene where he calls his sponsor on the phone while she's
Yeah,
yelling at him,
yeah.
and he's trying to talk to
Did you hear what you
and he
said to me?
"Do you hear what you just said to me? Can you hear what I'm dealing with?" Like, just the fact that he calls his sponsor, like, every single day, just like, "Dude, I'm going
Yeah,
crazy. I'm going crazy." You know, like,
yeah,
I got a kick out of that.
yeah. That
Um,
was yeah,
but again, it's like, the way that the the complexity of this relationship, in my opinion, even though they both have their issues, and you're right, he's passive aggressive, he doesn't know how to communicate, he doesn't know how to establish boundaries or ask for
mhm,
what he needs before it gets out of hand, and he needs to learn how to do that. But in my opinion, it's like she's the more problematic of the 2, at least
yeah,
the way it's presented here, and that's where I go
yeah,
like, "Huh," because the ultimate fight that they get in, he's preparing for his big comeback to go back to Japan. He trains with this new guy, and we do
yeah,
the whole training montage that
yeah,
maybe goes on for a little too long. We even skipped the whole like carnival thing, which I don't even think we need.
yeah.
Like
No, we don't.
I,
Yeah, yeah,
like I just was kind of like, okay, whatever.
yeah,
But like, but they have this big fight. They're about to have a dinner party, and they have this big fight. And the fight is that she finds out that hi Mark Coleman and also his trainer have both been like, "Hey, are you gonna talk to Dawn about not going to Japan for this fight? Like, are you gonna
yeah,
talk to her about staying home?" And she hears a message that she wasn't supposed to hear, and then she comes in and she's like, "So you're talking to them about me not going to Japan, but you can't just talk to me?" And this again, it drives home this thing of like, if he's talking with his trainer and talking with Mark Coleman about the fact
yeah,
that he knows that it's gonna be probably hard for him if Don is there, he needs to be able to say that to his partner.
yeah,
He
yeah,
obviously needs
yeah,
to be able to talk to her and go, "Listen, it's not that I don't love you. It's not that I don't value your support. It's that for what I do, it for some reason it's detrimental to my
yeah,
focus to have you
yeah,
backstage, to see you in the audience. It throws I
yeah,
don't somehow he needs to be able to like communicate that and set that boundary, and he can't do it. And because she catches him not being able to be direct with her, there's this huge blow up where she's just like, "Oh, okay, so I'm the worst. I'm terrible for you."
yeah. Well, she's goading him like, "You hit me. Go ahead and hit me," because he's fighting back pretty. They're yelling at each other. There's
Yeah.
there's no physical violence between the two of them, but they are yelling, and she's trying to really get him
Mhm.
angry, and so he walks away, and he's like, he like takes a deep breath, and he's like, "I think you need to go." Like
Mhm.
and this she like turns immediately, and she's like, "No, I was just saying that. Like I was just saying that." And this part is very she's really upset. She's saying, "It's okay. We have a dinner party. Like it's going to be okay." He's like, "No, I think you need to go."
He's like,
Like
"Call everyone and tell them
yeah.
that the dinner." and
Yeah.
and this is like, again, I this feels so realistic because I mean, there's actually a police report for this event, and it's
Yeah.
like straight out of the book because the police got involved, and
Yeah.
this is the kind of thing that happens in real life where it's like we literally had friends coming over for dinner. Had the table set, and we were
Mhm.
like in the process of getting ready, and something happened that made us get this happens all the time where
Oh,
you're
yeah.
we have
Yeah.
a double date planned, and then your friends text and they're like, "So sorry, we're fighting and, we're
Yeah.
running late."
It's
Like
it's in a lot of movies.
y
Yeah.
y and I just it felt like a real life thing to me, but this is the scene where I'm also like, if the details of this scene are not accurate,
Yeah.
then because this could have been several different things. What happens in the movie is she runs up to their bedroom and pulls a handgun out and threatens
Yeah.
to shoot herself. And he runs into the room and takes the gun away from her, at the last second and stops her from shooting herself. Then she gets loose from him and she locks herself in the bathroom. But because she's in there with razors and all kinds of
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
he's got to break the door down. And again, he's got to be big, strong, scary guy. And he's got to use his big,
Well,
strong.
yeah, and he taps on the door, just
Yeah.
like he's like, "Dawn, honey, please, like it's okay." But then you hear you hear
Yeah.
a bottle of pills, and
Mhm.
he breaks the door down, and then he grabs her, and I mean, she says like, "I just did it to get you." I can't. What does she say? She says like, I was just wanted you to come to me, and like,
Yeah, and then she also says, like, "You're hurting me," and he's like, "I'm not
Yeah.
hurting you. I'm not hurting. I'm just
Yeah.
holding you,"
Yeah.
because
Yep.
he's gotta, like, restrain her.
Yeah.
But again, it's like the reason why we might know the reported details of this evening is because the police showed up. And then
Yeah.
he obviously had to file a police report and they had to say, here's what happened. And maybe at some point, Dawn was also asked about this and she more or less confirmed the events of that night.
Yeah.
But it's still like a gun was involved and a door getting broken down was involved.
Yeah.
And it could be that Don was threatening suicide because he said that they were going to break up, or it could be something else. And
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where I'm like, nobody but those two actually knows what happened that night. And watching it, I mean, watching this scene, a couple next to me stood up and walked out of the theater and didn't come back.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was wondering, I was like, I wonder if the way that this relationship has been portrayed throughout this movie finally reached a tipping point for this woman, and she was like, "Nope, I don't wanna be here for this anymore,"
Mm.
and leaned over to her boyfriend and was like, "Let's go." But
Yeah.
I just was kinda like, "Huh, if this is really what happened, this feels messy in a really human and realistic way."
It
In
does. Yeah.
I'm
It's
too
it's
yeah.
uncomfortable in but in a very it's uncomfortable because it is portrayed very realistically.
Yeah, but if it's and this is where I say it could be controversial because it's like, if the
Yeah.
details are not correct, and if, like, he pulled a gun on her,
Mhm.
and then they agreed to tell a different story so that he wouldn't go to jail and he could fight, that's a really it's just like it's a thing
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yikes," but I think ultimately, like, what's being portrayed in the film is just that, uh, like you said, it's a movie about loss,
Yeah.
it's a movie about, like, learning lessons in
Yeah.
life that, like, dealing with disappointment, dealing with things not going the way that you would they hoped they were going to have a nice dinner party with their
Mhm.
friends, and instead, he basically asks her to move out, and then they have this really big, scary,
Yeah.
dramatic
Yeah.
situation unfold, and
Mm.
then he's gotta, like, leave town pretty much the next day and fly
Yeah.
back to Japan to fight,
Mhm.
and this is a really interesting 3rd act kind of because what this
Yeah.
3rd act starts to do is it's really clearly from the screenplay's perspective, driving us toward this inevitable conflict between Mark Kerr and Mark Coleman.
Yes.
That
Yes.
it's like the big storyline at the tournament is that these 2 friends are competing, they're both competing in the tournament, and it's sort of like like a kind of like battle royale style, like last man
Yeah. Yeah.
standing deal, where it's like a bracket situation of like everyone,
Yeah.
you fight your guy. If you win, you move on to the next round. You fight another, you get paired with another person. If you win, you move on to the next round. And what we feel like is it's gonna be Coleman and Kerr at the
Yeah,
end,
yeah. That's
like
that's what it's building to. That's what everybody's talking about because 'cause they're like, "Are you ready to fight your friend for a life-changing amount of money?" And it's really, really built up. It's really that's what you that's what the stereotypical movie would have done.
mhm.
But so, like, they're doing that, and I mean, at this point, Mark is sober and he's won some fights, and then he comes in and I think he wins. Does he win 2 fights or does he just win his
I
first
think
one?
he just wins his first one.
Yeah.
I think that it's like everyone has to win 2 I think it's the
Yeah.
amount of people it's like each person wins 2 to get to the final round.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Uh,
And
yeah.
yeah, so he wins his first one. So Mark Kerr wins his first one, Mark Coleman wins his first one, and then Mark Coleman wins his second one. So he is like, I think he's
Mark
in the
Coleman's on to the final, and then it's like if
yeah,
Mark Kerr wins, it's gonna be Coleman and Kerr.
right.
And but, this isn't a movie, it's based on real I mean, it is a movie, but I mean, this is a real thing, and often one of my favorite things about sports are these kinda storylines of, like,
Yeah,
following, like, oh, there's 2 brothers that both went to different schools, and
yeah,
they're playing, BYU, Utah, one of them went to
yeah,
BYU, one of them went to Utah, and they're
yeah,
brothers, and they have to play against each other, and their parents are in the stands wearing a jersey that's, like,
yeah,
half
yeah,
BYU, half Utah, that kinda thing, but in this movie, as happens often in real life, everyone's hoping for the big dramatic storyline of Kerr
yeah,
versus Coleman, but Mark Kerr loses in the second round and he's
yeah.
out.
He's out,
And
yeah.
yeah,
And that really is and then Mark Coleman ends up winning the whole thing.
yeah,
And in the end, like and he won he lost fair and square,
mhm,
and so this really is he kind of like goes down. We have kind of a scene, and he does talk to Mark Coleman, and Mark Coleman's like, "Hey, man, it happens. Like, it's you'll get back from it. No big deal." And he gets in the shower. Mark Kerr gets in the shower and just like he's kind of like laughing.
Hmm.
He's kind of so. This is his journey. His journey is accepting the loss,
Yeah.
accepting that I lost. Like that's just what happens. So this is the total climax of the movie, and it is not what we all expected
Yeah.
because this is again in a sports movie you expect him to go to the top and win, get to the top and
Or
learn the lesson and win.
at the very least, he's gonna get to fight his best friend, and it's gonna be this really
Yes,
dramatic friend on friend, and maybe he loses to his friend, but like,
right.
but yeah, but this is so not what you expect. It's
No,
like, oh, it's over. Like that's
yeah,
it.
it's just like he's done, and then he has gone on his journey, but the win for him is not the actual win in the tournament, it's the win of accepting his losses
Hmm.
and learning how to deal with that emotion and learning how to deal with all of his emotions. So that's pretty much the end. He's like laughing in the shower, which
Yeah.
again I was kind of like, what's it really interesting? And then it goes to 2025 in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we see the real Mark Kerr in a grocery store.
Who again is the same age as The Rock. Just
And he's like, "All right, hey guys, all right, we'll see you later." And
he
it's
literally
like,
he looks at the camera and he's like,
yeah,
"Hey guys," and he's like,
yeah,
and then he gets it, which is an very Benny Safdie way to
yeah,
end a
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
Just like having like the real Kevin Garnett there, just like in Uncut Gems, just like Kevin Garnett's gonna come in and be Kevin Garnett in this movie.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like very yeah, it's like it's very it's a very I'm not sure I like this flash forward thing. It's
yeah,
it's different. I like a lot of the things that Benny Safdie does to take this away from the genre tropes,
yeah, yeah,
but I kind of felt like this movie maybe could have had a more of a punch of an ending if it had just ended without this flash forward. I don't know,
yeah,
but
yeah. Because we also get the description that that Mark Kerr and Dawn got married 10 days later in Las Vegas,
yep,
and they have a son together, and they were married for 6 years, I think, or
yeah,
something. So they're
they
obviously
are,
not together now.
yeah,
Like,
but they have a son together, and
yeah,
and it's like a thing where it's like, I guess the thing with Mark and Don is that they kept fighting for it. They
mhm,
kept like suffering losses and disappointments in their relationship, and they kept trying. They kept like coming back together and trying anyway. And
mhm.
maybe they didn't ultimately figure it out, but like
Yeah, yeah,
they got a son out of it, and maybe I don't know. It's just it is an interesting film because
yeah,
for a sports drama or a biopic,
yeah,
it's not really about like the most epic fighter that ever was or like it's just sort of like about this one guy that's like, yeah, it was pretty good.
yeah,
And I also like I had some struggles and
yeah. It's a very,
just
very human story.
yeah, which I think is a really interesting again, that's why I think the fighter, I compare it to the fighter because that's Mickey Ward is not like a boxer who's thought of as like one of the great boxers of all time. He's just
Mhm.
kinda like a guy who like had some good fights, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
And
but he even wins
yeah, he does
in
win.
the
Yeah.
end. So,
Yeah. Mhm.
but yeah, it's a very, very. I don't even know if I mean, I would call this a sports drama
Yeah.
or a drama with sports. Like it's not even a sports movie. I wouldn't consider, and that's not a dig at the film. It's just the way that they decided to go with this, and it made it a very interesting dramatic movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's the Smashing Machine. So let's get into scores here. If this is your first time watching our show, we give scores out of 10, 10 being the best. We give a technical rating for the craft of the film, just the writing, acting, directing, nuts and bolts, the cinematography, music, all that stuff. We give a score for the ending of the film. How well did it stick the landing? We give a score for rewatchability, a score for cultural impact and significance, and a score for our just subjectively, how much did we enjoy it? So, what's your technical rating for the Smashing Machine?
My technical rating is a 7
Okay.
because I think it was done really, really well. He took a lot of risks, but I also did it it was kind of a cycle,
Hmm.
like he wins a fight or he loses a fight, and then he has a fight with Dawn, and then he goes back, and then he fights with Dawn again, and then he goes back, and then he fights with Dawn again. And after, like, I don't know if they could have taken out one of the fights in there, but it kind of just felt cyclical in a way. But I mean, the performances are amazing. You know, they made a really, really solid film. They took some chances that I don't know if it completely paid off all the way. It's not paying off in a general sense because not as many people are seeing the movie. Um, but I think he pulled off. Benny Safdie did an amazing job and made a really good movie that overall I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I gave it an 8 technically because I think that he did execute what he was trying to execute quite
Yeah.
well. I think that this movie's going to age pretty well. I think
Yeah.
that, like, with
Yeah.
time, people are gonna come back to it and be like, "As far as fighting movies go, that's an underrated one." And, like, as far
Mm.
as, like, sports dramas go, that's an underrated one because of the humanity that he finds here. And also, I think I mean, it's gonna be hard for Dwayne Johnson just based on how many movies Dwayne Johnson has been in, like what a big sample size we have of his work. It's not I don't know that we're ever gonna see him really top this. Like this is probably
Yeah.
going to go by when all is said and done, this is probably still going to be regarded as one of, if not the best performance he ever turns in his career.
Yeah.
And but like, we talked about the makeup and we talked about
Mhm.
the level of like kind of technical expertise that is on display with the fighting and the athletics of it all. And I really like the camera work and I like
Yeah.
the original. I like, but I think I dock a couple points because I do feel like Benny maybe could have used to have been reined in by an editor. I think this movie could get down to around 2 hours and be a lot better.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like 2.5 hours, and
Yeah, it's long.
I think it could come down a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
And you're
but
right. I need to put I'm changing mine to 7.5. The all the other technical side of it, the makeup, all that, it was pretty amazing.
yeah, I think I like technically like I think that they made a movie that with time is going to be regarded as like, oh, that's a pretty good film. Like that's a pretty
Yeah.
good flick. And I do think there's more to Emily Blunt's character than just being like, ah, she's kind of one note. I'm like, that's a real human being though, right there.
Yeah.
That's not a trope or like a
No.
like that's a
And I mean,
real
she's too good of an actress to just, like you're talking about, be a trope. There's
yeah,
more to it. There's a lot more to it.
yeah. Okay, how about the ending?
The ending I gave a 7. He took a chance, this I mean, he doesn't win, but he overall emotionally progresses. So it's a pretty big chance, but it's also building up to that, like it's building up to the Mark Coleman fight. And I was like, man, did they ever fight? Like I would have loved to have seen that. But if it didn't happen in real life, I get it. But maybe that did they need to build up to it? But either way, I mean, they took a chance and they did well. So
I think the movie should have ended with Mark Kerr and Mark Coleman going to, like, a dark boxing ring, like, at night and being like and, like, wearing, like, one
ding
of them
ding.
exactly. "Hey, didn't no bell. Ding, ding,"
Yep, that's how it should have ended. Yep.
Stallion, you fight great, but I'm a great fighter."
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Oh, Apollo Creed.
Yeah, they do the Apollo and Rocky fight from the end of
Yep.
Rocky 3.
That
But
Yep.
no, the ending of this film, I like that Safdie subverts our expectations
Yeah.
and also it's really real life subverted our
Yes.
expectations. And I like that he drives home this idea of like a film about disappointment and everything. I think you nailed it with that. But I do think that the ending like a lot of the film gets a little meandery. And
Yes.
when it comes to this score specifically on our show, I like to think of like, does the ending really leave you like, whoa, like, or
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
does it really feel like the story lands where it needs to land, effectively? Like I watched Inception last night, and it's just one of those movies that like, no matter how many times you see it, the way it ends just leaves you like, oh, just like that last shot, you're just like, oh,
Yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
it's like, it's just
Yep.
great. And they can't all be like that, but
No.
sometimes I want a movie like at its highest point to just cut to black and be done.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Presence, that movie that like
Yes.
boom, like
Yeah.
we got you, we're out,
Yeah.
And this movie sort of lingers a little bit
Yeah.
where I just kind of go, I got you, but it's already kind of a meandery, lingery
Yeah.
movie. So maybe
Yeah.
we just get to the end. So I gave it a 7.
Okay.
How about rewatchability?
Rewatchability, I gave a 6. I mean, the performances were great, but kind of like you said at the beginning, like I'm not. I didn't leave the theater thinking, man, I want to see that again. Like, I definitely could watch it again, but I'm not rushing out to go see it.
Yeah, I gave it a 6.5. It's I think, like, if it was on TV, I'd be like, "Oh, let me watch this again." I
Yeah.
think there's stuff that I would be interested to come back to, and again, I think this movie will age well, but it
Yes.
is, like, I think some of that meanderiness, if I'm gonna put in a Safdie movie to rewatch, it would probably be Good Time or Uncut Gems before this, but again, I get that Benny was not trying to recreate what they did in those earlier films. He was doing something
Mhm.
else here, and I appreciate what he did, but I'm not sure how eager I am to get back to it.
Yeah.
How about the cultural impact and significance?
I gave this a 6. I think you were right though. I think after time, I think this will age well. But right now, it has not made a huge impact. Um, so I think this score will change down the line, but I'm just kind of going off of the impact it's made right now. So I think 6.
I know it's not doing great at the box office, but I give it a 7, mostly just because Dwayne Johnson is such a huge movie star. I have a hard time believing that, like, I do think he's going to get nominated for, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a hard time believing that, like, a movie like that where it's like Dwayne Johnson got nominated and maybe even won a few Best Actor awards at different festivals. um, I have a hard time believing that that won't have staying power in the culture. Like, and I
Yes.
also think the Safdies have made they have enough of a respected name that we'll see what time does for them.
Yeah.
But I also am like, there is a world where Dwayne just gets fully snubbed, and the Academy just
Yeah.
goes, we don't care about that movie because it
Yeah.
didn't, do numbers or whatever. But
Mhm.
I have a hard time seeing that happening. I kind of feel like a nomination is inevitable.
Yes.
What's your subjective score?
My subjective score is a 7. I think there were some meandering things. The cyclical nature of it got a little, was a little wearing on me at times. But overall, amazing performances, amazing makeup, cinematography, and uh, Benny Safdie is the editor as well.
Mm,
Writer,
but there it
director,
is.
producer, editor. So that is, I guess,
Mm.
yeah. We should have talked about that earlier because, yeah, he could when you're the editor of your own movie, sometimes it's a little hard to be subjective.
Well, and, like, good job. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's always like, Sean Baker does that, Steven Soderbergh
Steven
does that.
Soderbergh, yep,
It's
yep.
always impressive when you can cut your own film and, like,
Yeah.
but that's really interesting. I gave it a 7.5 subjective score. Again, I just am partial to this genre. I
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
these movies, and they always sort of do something for me, and I liked all of the different approach all the ways that this one was just felt different and took its
Mhm.
it found its own way through the story. I really liked the exploration of the characters and how human the screenplay felt. I would just say, I do that's him as the editor. I think working with someone else maybe, but
Yeah.
working really closely and making sure that it still has that jazzy vibe and that feel, but just I think that they could have taken some time out of this and made it a trimmer, slicker film
Yeah.
overall. But yeah, okay, that's it. Let us know what you thought of the Smashing Machine. Is he getting the Oscar or what? What's happening? Is Benny Safdie getting any nominations for
Yeah.
screenplay or anything like that? We're getting on the grid and we're watching Tron Ares next week. So if you want to go to the theater and watch Tron Ares, you could do that. I might get crazy and watch all three of the
Yeah.
Trons.
Yeah.
Truth be
We'll
told,
see. Maybe I will too. Yeah.
I've never actually watched Tron all the way through. I
Me either.
So many times as a kid it would be on TV and I would turn it on and I there's something about that first one that is so, like, visually it just is like one kind of note
Yeah.
that I just
Yeah.
couldn't as a kid. I just was like, I can't get into whatever's going on here. Just like
Yeah.
it's just like it all
Yeah.
just looks the same. But maybe I'll go back to it and see if
Yeah.
I can get into it,
I
you
might need
know?
to push through it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, I just don't ever I don't know, I couldn't tell you anything about Tron Legacy. I couldn't tell you anything
The
about, like,
You didn't like
other
the
than, like,
soundtrack?
I could tell you that.
There you go.
I could
That's
tell you Daft Punk did the soundtrack.
I still listen to it, man. That soundtrack is awesome.
Yeah. So I'm
Amazing, amazing.
what we're gonna do. I hear the soundtrack again is kind of the star of the movie here. The
Well, yeah,
Nine
you
Inch
got Nine
Nails.
Inch Nails, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see, and we're gonna be talking about it next week. Tron Ares, if you want to watch along. We might do a few spooky movies for the spooky season.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, keep watching, subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff, and we will see you the next time we see you.
Bye-bye.